The one and only Xylophony here to share with you guys my Ancient Gear Golem deck. Now I've been working all week, all dual week, trying to master Ancient Gears, make them as good as they can be, and fight against the most competitive decks in the meta right now. There's been some shortcomings and some improvements, and I think this deck is ready. Just about ready. At the end of this video, towards the end of it rather, I will do some duels, showing you guys some of the crazy combos you can pull off with this, and do a lot of OTK-centric plays. But let's see, how do I start by explaining this? I suppose I should go into the Ancient Gear Golem itself. A main facet of the Ancient Gear cards is that they can attack and do piercing damage. Now, of course, piercing damage means even if your opponent's in defense mode, you do a little bit of extra damage to him. You still do life point damage. As well as that, you also attack, and during the battle phase, your opponent can't activate spell or trap cards. That means no Mirror Force, no counter traps. You're safe to attack as much as you please. Now, those cards aren't used as much in the meta right now as they used to be, but you still see an occasional Quaking Mirror Force or something along that line, so it's pretty convenient to have. Anyway, there's two main ideas with this deck. One is super powerful fusion monsters, and the other is using combos to bring out a number of Ancient Gears at the same time, as well as just Grinder Golem. Just to get this out of the way, Grinder Golem's in here. Most of this extra deck stuff is for Grinder Golem, because we had room in the extra deck. Grinder Golem's still good, and if you got room, run him. That's all I can say. If you want to do Scapegoat instead to bring out your Decode Talker Borreload, that's fine too. But I like Grinder Golem. Anyway, let's talk about the fusion cards. The most powerful monster in this deck is Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. This card, on top of, being Ancient Gear and super cool like that, he also can attack every monster your opponent has. Yeah, he's one of those. Not only that, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards on him, period. Not even just in the battle phase, period. So they have to deal with his 4,500 attack points if they want to beat him, or of course use a monster effect. But he gets the piercing damage. If you bring him out with a power bond, as we saw last duel week, he can have an insane amount of attack points. In this case, 9,000 attack points. Considering you can attack every monster and do piercing damage, if you get a power bond combo bringing this guy out, your opponent can't use any spells or traps to beat it, you pretty much win. However, it's kinda hard to do. Sometimes instead of doing that, you have to bring out the Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, which is a little bit weaker, has a little bit of a backup play. When this card's destroyed, you can bring an Ancient Gear Golem out from your graveyard, and he's nearly as good. He just doesn't quite do the attacking everyone thing that the Chaos Ancient Gear Giant does. Just after that, we have our Ancient Gear Megaton Golem, which is only 3 Ancient Gear monsters, and it doesn't have to specify using an Ancient Gear Golem. So this is one of the easier ones to summon out. It only has 3,300 attack, but once again with Power Bond that's 6,600, and it still has all the goodness of an Ancient Gear. Finally, for the fusions, we have Ancient Gear Howitzer, which is the most common one you'll bring out, because it's only 2 of any Ancient Gear monster. It's super easy to bring out, but it's also not the best. One thing you can do with them is just burn your opponent for 1,000 damage, so you got a little bit of burn if you need to get that extra edge. And also if he's destroyed, which essentially is what you're going to want your opponent to do, attack him and destroy him, you get to bring out a Ancient Gear monster. So it's pretty good, but of course if you have the opportunity, you're going to want to bring out the Chaos Ancient Gear Giant and just destroy your opponent right then and there. Obviously, since, these plays can be countered and stuff, you're kind of going to want to go second turn, just so you can destroy your opponent as soon as you get these cards, as soon as you get the combo. You don't want to have to wait around, because if you summon an Chaos Ancient Gear Giant the first turn, your opponent might be able to destroy you with an effect. They might be able to kaiju you. They might be able to take you down. Speaking of which, we do have kaijus in this deck, because there's not a lot to counter incredible opponent plays. Now when it comes to the kaijus, I heavily considered using Jizakuru, because it's a very powerful machine kaiju with a lot of attack points. However, in testing, I realized I had it in my hand and wanted to use it just as a basic kaiju, putting it on my opponent's field, sacrificing one of their monsters, and then it's more powerful than your average Ancient Gear monster, so I decided not to use it and instead just going with Radiant as my strongest kaiju, because it can still beat the other 2 kaijus in case I want to use Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which is an insanely good card, and it's still something. Of course, the kaijus will just take out any major opponent play that they have. Anyway, back to the fusion stuff. To make all these fusion combos happen, we have a few different ways to do it. One way, of course, I mentioned is the Power Bond, doubling your attack. If you do that on one of the stronger monsters, you're going to be in a really good place. But an easier way to do it is with the Ancient Gear Fusion. Now, Ancient Gear Fusion is essentially just a polymerization, but you can use cards from your hand as fusion material as well. The main benefit of Ancient Gear Fusion is if you manage to get an Ancient Gear Golem or a Prisma named Ancient Gear Golem onto the field, then you can use fusion material from your deck. Meaning, all you need to do is get one of these guys onto the field, or Ultimate Pound as well. And then you just play this card on him, you sacrifice him from the field, and 3 random Ancient Gears from your deck, just spare ones that you have extras of at the time, and you can bring out your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant right then and there, with 1 material from your hand and field and 3 from your deck. It's a pretty good way to make it happen if you get the right combo, but that's the thing, this deck definitely relies on you getting the right combos. One additional way to do some fusion summons is with this guy, the Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. Now this one is very weak monster. You play it, you deal 600, effect damage to your opponent, but also you can use this card to essentially just be a polymerization. You can use cards from the field and hand to fuse into any Ancient Gear monster. So if you happen to have, 4 Ancient Gear monsters in your hand and one of them's an Ancient Gear Hunting Hound, you can still bring out your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. And if you're looking pretty light on plays and you got 2 Ancient Gear monsters, you just play Hunting Hound, fuse them up, get your Howitzer out there, and hope your opponent can set you up for a better play next turn. And I almost forgot Overload Fusion. Now, if you would like to take a card out of your deck, this might be one, because it's more for later game plays, and this deck is very much you want to beat your opponent early. But you do a lot of sending Ancient Gears to your graveyard, which means Overload Fusion will help set you up with another fusion monster. Say you want to turn 2 of these monsters into one of your Link monsters, such as Mrs. Radiant. It'll boost up all your Earth monsters. These guys are all Earth monsters, by the way. That means you'll be able to then use Overload Fusion, use those same 2 monsters to go into a Howitzer. Or, of course, if you have more stuff than that, you could go into Mrs. Radiant and then, pull into a stronger Ancient Gear monster if you wanted to, and have an additional slot because of the arrows and whatnot. So that's pretty good. Also, the other Link you could go into is Underclock Taker if you feel that's better at the time, but those are pretty much the only 2 ones you'll ever use your Ancient Gear monsters for. All the other ones are just for grinder golem combos, and that's all the extra deck. But that's also all of the fusion combos we have. Moving on to the Ancient Gear just stuff itself. We have, of course, our Ancient Gear Golem. We have our Ultimate Pound, which is just a stronger version of Ancient Gear Golem with better effects. Not all of his effects can get used right now because we don't actually run polymerization, but he's still better than Ancient Gear Golem. The only reason we don't run just 2 Ultimate Pounds is because Ancient Gear Golem can be searched by this card, Ancient Gear Frame, while this card cannot. In Ancient Gear Frame, essentially you just discard 1 card, and then you're able to pull a card to your deck, such as Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Fusion. 2 of the main pieces you need for that combo I was talking about to get your Chaos Ancient Gear Giant out. So this is one of your better search cards. Also, you have the Ancient Gear Box, which if you use one of your search cards, well, pretty much just the Ancient Gear Wyvern to search it, then you can use its effect to search another card, give you more fusion material. So Ancient Gear Wyvern is just a basic search card, pull any Ancient Gear card from your deck, use that. Use it on Ancient Gear Box, use Ancient Gear Box's effect, get Ancient Gear Frame out, and then if you need to, use Ancient Gear Frame's effect, and get yourself an Ancient Gear Fusion, because you'll have at least 3 Ancient Gears right there. So there's some combos that can get you a lot of monsters. You just need all the pieces to make those combos work. On top of that, we have the Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon, which is probably stronger than the 2 of these Ancient Gear Golems, because not only does it have those Ancient Gear effects we were talking about, but it also, when you attack, you get to destroy one of your opponent's spell or trap cards. Remember, during the battle phase, your opponent can't activate them, so no matter what it is, they won't be able to play it. They won't be able to use it. They won't be able to salvage it whatsoever. You just destroy it. Then and there. Done. So this is your only spell destruction in the deck. We don't run any Twin Twisters. You could switch one of these cards out for a Tornado Dragon if you wanted to, but I found there was rare situations where you would rather go into an Exi than prepare for a Ancient Gear Fusion monster, especially with how quickly you want the duel to be over with this deck. So that's essentially all the monsters we have there, but how do we get these really powerful ones out quickly? Well, that's with these cards down here. We have Gear Town. This way, when this field card is out there, you can only sacrifice one monster and bring out one of your 8-star monsters. But that's not what this effect is for. The main effect of Gear Town is when you destroy it, you will get to bring an Ancient Gear monster from your deck, or when your opponent destroys it, pretty much just when this card is destroyed by an effect. What effect, might you ask? Ancient Gear Catapult. Ancient Gear Catapult, you activate it, and it'll destroy one of your own cards on the field. Then, you get to search an Ancient Gear Golem from your deck. So essentially, you play this card on this card, and then you get to pull 2 of any of your Ancient Gear monsters from your deck. Not only that, but we have the Ancient Gear Fortress, which is essentially the same effect. When it's destroyed, you search an Ancient Gear Golem. The only downside about this is when you use Ancient Gear Fortress for this effect, you can't special summon any monsters. So you gotta just destroy your opponent with your Ancient Gear Golem and Reactor Dragon that you just summoned, rather than going into a fusion combo during that turn. But that's 9 cards in the deck that help facilitate that combo. But there's more than that. The Ancient Gear Catapult can also be used from the graveyard, so we have the Foolish Burial Goods to send it into the graveyard, activate its effect, and then destroy one of these cards as well. So, that's pretty good. Now when you use it from the graveyard, it's not quite as good. That means you just pull out 1 Ancient Gear Golem, but you also get an Ancient Gear token, which can be used for fusion material if you would like. Of course, we also have 2 terraformings to just help facilitate this combo a little bit, but a large part of the deck is just to get multiple Ancient Gear monsters out. Well, what else do we have in the deck to go over? Of course, we have 2 Pot of Desires, just to have that little extra draw power. Since, if you lose Ancient Gear Golem, this deck is pretty much dead. You really never want to play more than 1 Pot of Desires in a duel, unless you already have your combos out, or you're very desperate at the time. I wish there was better draw power, but the deck's also quite unreliable, so you need the intense draw power that Pot of Desires is. So, we run 2 of them, just hoping that we draw 1 early game, and don't discard our Ancient Gear Golem. It's a gamble, but hey, what's a card game without a little gambling? And we also have, of course, limiter removal, just because since we're doing an OTK-style deck, doing double damage is a good idea. Monster Reborn, usually used to bring back the Ancient Gear Wyvern so we can use its effect to search again, since it can't be used for an Ancient Gear Golem, unfortunately. It's actually not super great in this deck, but it's still a super great card, so why not? Anyway, I think that goes over just about everything we have. Of course, Grinder Golem, if I didn't mention him, combos up, gets your Borlo Dragon and Firewall Dragon out. It's mean. It's really mean. But that's pretty much everyone, so who would like to see some of these combos in testing? So this first one is going up against dinosaurs, or a form of dinosaurs it would seem. Now, dinosaurs are a very direct counter to Ancient Gear Golems, because this Ultimate Conductor Tyranno can just send the monsters face down so they can't use their effects. I can't use them for fusion material. It just stops it outright, and then he just destroys them because he destroys face down monsters. But here you can see me using Foolish Burial Goods to send the Ancient Gear Catapult to the grave, popping out Gear Town so I can use the catapult on that, and then getting myself an Ancient Gear token and the Reactor Dragon. Of course, he sends me face down. I was kind of trying to do that early to hope I could do a little bait there. So let's see what comes next. Oh, look! My Elemental Hero Prisma! Since I was able to bait out the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, now I can use that to send the Ancient Gear Golem to the graveyard, which means we have the Fusion Golem combo. Guess what we're about to see? The big ol' Ancient Gear Giant. And we just use the token to do that because the token's not really super useful for much else. So Ancient Gear Giant on the field, that's going to be strong enough to take out the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which nullified our Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon, sick bait, and helped us out a little bit more. Now we're just going to, play our Pot of Desires to set us up for the next play. Unfortunately, we just regular drew our Ancient Gear box, so it's just going to be used as fusion material now. But it's a decent start for us. Now, unfortunately, you can see here they have a double evolution pill in their hands, so that just means they're going to pull another one out. And the weakness of Chaos Ancient Gear Giant is monster effects. So, oh, there's a monster effect about to take him over right now. This dinosaur player did really well with his combos. He managed to get 3 Ultimate Conductor Tyrannos out by the 3rd turn. So, it's going to have to be a lot to pull back from this. And I have a Power Bond, but all I have left is Howitzer. And it's not quite enough to finish him off. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of losing going on in a couple of these replays, but I felt like this demonstrated the potential of it a lot. And you can see how if you lose your big cards too early, you pretty much are dry on combos. Let's check out another replay. So we have an Ancient Gear Golem and Overload Fusion in our hand. We have 4 Ancient Gear monsters. All we need to do is get a way to fuse these guys from hand. And hello, Power Bond! This is the dream hand right here. So Power Bond brings us out into Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, who gains 9,000, reaches 9,000 attack points, and we throw out the Ancient Gear Wyvern for extra measures. Little did I know he was about to boost himself up to 2,700. So I destroy him, doing a lot of damage with that. And look, it's a nice clean 1,700 for that nice juicy OTK. And that's what you can do with the Power Bond combo. What's up next? We have over here a replay where my opponent decides to use, these dark cards. Dark World. Very nice. We finally get to see the Ancient Gear Golem. So he's making me discard my own cards. I decide on throwing the Reactor Dragons out because I really want to try out the Grinder Golem combo with and have a Kaiju at the ready. We have he got rid of my Kaiju. That's a shame. So he set himself up pretty well and took cards out of my hand. He's a very mean person. So turn 2, we are a little dry on plays. We have Ancient Gear Fortress and Gear Town, but we don't have any Catapult to destroy them. Now, thank you. He destroys all the spell cards from my hand, which happen to get Ancient Gears from my deck. So, that'll get me the Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon from the grave and a Wyvern from the deck. Hoping I can pull out an Ancient Gear Fusion, make some things happen soon. But here's where the Grinder Golem comes in. Now with a Grinder Golem combo setting me up with these other cards on the field, I should be able to gain the advantage, assuming he doesn't get anything that's going to change this duel around. Grinder Golem in this deck buys time. He quit. Yeah, no one likes Grinder Golem, let's be honest. They hate him. They hate him. Here we have, so we have a very obvious first turn play with the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. That'll up. He doesn't like that card either. People like to quit sometimes. Okay, I don't even know why I saved that replay. Probably just to show that this is a good card. Alright, so now we have the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. But what is he going to do? He is going to go into that, and I wonder what play I'll start with. Terraform to get a card here. And this time I'm not going to go for the Kaiju Slumber until I, set myself up a little bit. Get the Radiant out. Obviously, I could have Jizukuru'd if that was in the deck, but Radiant's just a little more reliable for all purposes. We get that set up. We get our Gear Town out here. We know we have a card in the deck we can mess with. He cancels the effect, which I kind of wanted to go into a Howitzer here and then wait for the effect of this, but, we're just going to play the patient game this duel. We're going to destroy that, do a little bit of life point damage, keep some potential plays in my hand, and see if we can get a fusion out later. Because we know with this card here we'll be able to do some things. It's just we didn't have any fusion combos aside from Ancient Gear Hunting Hound, and my effect was cancelled there, so I didn't want to blow the effect of Catapult just yet. He clears my field, opening my field up for a nice little Catapult play, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Catapult, destroy that, and what monster? Reactor Dragon, because I definitely want to destroy Lair of Darkness. So, we also have the limiter removal. The Ancient Gear Frame in the hand. And we can use that to get rid of that Kaiju we just got. And he realizes that he's about to lose a spell card. I'm about to gain more combos. And he quits. Let's see what the final duel I have to show you guys is. Alright, now I have a feeling this was a pretty good one. We see him going with some Pendulum cards, getting a pretty crazy setup. Actually, no, this wasn't a pretty crazy setup. I thought I had a really crazy setup in here. I don't know. But then we go with the Grinder Golem combo. Grinder Golem start coming out. Now, this guy's going to let me actually Grinder Golem, right? Because I think the play I go for here is, of course, getting a Firewall Dragon out and then a Decode Talker rather than the Borreload. Since I opened up with the Grinder Golem and I don't want to use my normal summon because, well, you can see what's in my hand. 4 Ancient Gear monsters and 1 being a fusion potential. I think you know where this is going. So we are going to set that up, see if I can get any cards into my graveyard, maybe get some cards I would like. Set myself up in case I get an Overload Fusion or something like that. We're able to go into this, switch out to the Decode Talker. Nice power play just off the Grinder Golem combo. And now it's time to bring out the Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. I don't think I even need to touch these 2 powerful monsters. I don't think I even need to activate any effects or do anything with these guys. Simply the power of Chaos Ancient Gear Giant is going to win me the duel right here. Piercing, 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 and there was still another monster on the field to pierce. So as you can see, with Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, that's how you win the duel. The other things, they can help you get to that point, but you really want that Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. But of course, he's not always super easy to summon. Some of those duels were examples of where it worked out. But there were some duels that I didn't show you where we just bricked hard and lost 3rd or 4th turn. Not gonna lie. So, this deck isn't the most consistent, but when you do bring out that Ancient Gear Giant, it is power. As you saw in some of the Duel Week episodes, it certainly outpowers a lot of things, even Cyber Dragons. But Cyber Dragons have the edge of consistency, where this not necessarily does. Some of the other cards I was considering throwing in the deck were an additional one of these, just to facilitate that fusion combo. I talked about the Kaiju thing, Gold Gadget if you're going to go for more level 4s. Ancient Gear Gadget is another Ancient Gear monster, but it's also very situational. Speedroid I was actually able to use quite a bit, Menko, but he also is not an Ancient Gear, so not exactly a card you want in your hand when you're trying to bring out Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Ash Blossom Ghost Ogre, always good, not to mention they pretty much hard counter this, because when you go to summon, some of your cards like your Ancient Gear Wyvern, they can just Ash Blossom you from getting your new card. If you go to fuse with Ancient Gear Hunting Hound, they can just Ghost Ogre you, and then you won't have your own Hunting Hound as material. There's a lot of ways to stop this, or if your Ancient Gear Hunting Hound goes to burn, they'll just do it before you even get to activate that effect. The current meta is not very nice to Ancient Gear Golems. But of course, Evenly Matched is a good card in any deck. Ancient Gear Reborn is a decent card because it actually sees a lot of play with how much it can do bringing Ancient Gear Golems back. But once again, this is a very fast-paced deck, and the current meta is very good at countering cards like this. And then Solemns if you want to do a little bit of countering. But I suppose that's everything we have to say about the deck. Always try to go second turn, try to get that combo out as fast as possible. If you don't have the combo cards in your hand, try to be patient. Try not to throw out like medium plays too quickly, because you gotta save it all up for the big play when you can just win that turn then and there. If you have any other suggestions you would like to mention about the Ancient Gear Golem deck, make sure to let me know in the comments down below. Have a discussion of what works better for you in your Ancient Gear deck. We have a community of Yu-Gi-Oh players here, so if you guys work together, then you can become some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh players out there. But hopefully you have enjoyed this video and subscribed. Leave a like on the video, and I will see you next time.